Hey parents, Luke here. As we've kind of gotten back in the rhythm, summer's over, great summer in our youth ministry, school's back in session, and I wanted to just bring some things to your attention that you may or may not be aware of as a parent of a teenager. Like I always say in these videos, I try to develop resources to help you. I see this as a partnership. This is not, hey, I'll spiritually take care of your kids, you feed them and keep them clothed, and then I'll do the spiritual stuff. No, this is a hand in hand. We're doing this thing together. And parenting teenagers is no picnic. It is tough, especially in 2019. In fact, today I was getting my hair cut. Real friendly lady. She was very just talkative. I'm not the most talkative person when I'm getting my hair cut, but today was a little different. It was just this natural conversation. Turns out she moved here from Dallas about 2 years ago, has not found a good church home, and she feels like it's affecting the way her teenagers act. She's got 4 kids. The youngest is 6, and then the next one up is 12, then 14, then 16. And so she was just struck with the realization that this is a different world, and I don't know how to navigate my teenagers in this, and I need help. And so it was a really cool conversation. Of course, I invited her to church. But one of the things I said to her kind of made me want to make sure that I'm relaying it to you as well. And it was this. A lot of, like, would you ever, if your teenager said, hey, there's a big warehouse downtown that they're having a party in, could you take me to the party? Would you just, no questions asked, would you drive your teenager downtown, drop them off in the warehouse, and leave without ever going inside to see what was in there, asking who was hosting the party, asking what the theme of the party was there going to be alcohol there, who else is going to this party, who's in charge of this thing? Like, would you, as a parent, drop your teenager off in this warehouse and just walk away, not having any context or clue of what's going on? No, you wouldn't. And I asked the woman cutting my hair this question, and she goes, of course I wouldn't do that. And I said, well, when you give your child a phone, that's essentially what you're doing. And I'm not preaching don't give your kids phones. What I am saying is, don't just throw them in the warehouse. Like, there's this giant online scum. What am I trying to say? This giant online warehouse, this giant place that you don't know who's on there. You don't know the conversations that are being had. You don't know what's happening. And this is a party, a conversation that never, ever ends. They enter the warehouse. They're there all the time. And if you're not checking in, being aware with what's going on their phone, then you're essentially doing just that. You're leaving them to their own devices and not questioning what's going on. I'm not saying be the helicopter parent where every little thing has to be monitored, but I am saying be aware, be cognizant, make this a part of your conversation with your kid. I think that there's a fine line. You don't want to be totally negligent and just trust them, but you also don't want to be overbearing, and you only know where that is with your kid. And if this hasn't been a conversation, if this hasn't been something that you've kind of kept tabs on, just give yourself permission. Use the school year as a reset. Treat it like people treat January 1. Hey, in January 1, we all refocus, we recalibrate, we change some things in our lives. Do that this school year. And I felt like this was something timely I wanted to get out to you as we've started the school year, because they're entering back into this online conversation. There's faces they're seeing offline that are being connected online, and it's all this whole big mess. I'm going somewhere with this. There's a specific direction. So I read an article over the summer that I wanted to share with you and just kind of unpack it. So I'm going to pull the article. I'll throw some stats on the screen. But essentially, these are some statistics in regards to teens using cell phones. Again, I'm not against teenagers having cell phones. I'm not. It's a part of the way, it's part of the world we're in. Like, it's just, I'm sorry, it's just part of it. What I am saying is this needs to be an ongoing and open conversation between you and your kids. And here's something that's scary. Some of these statistics, I'm sort of telling you them to scare you, mainly just telling you them so you're aware. I also feel like a lot of us don't ever want to think that our kids are the ones that are misbehaving on the internet. But you'll never know unless you go inside the warehouse and check it out. You know what I mean? So I'm wearing my Google hat today so that I look nerdy and professional because I'm talking about technology. So this article that I read, it came out in July about sexting, July 2019. So here's some research, some statistics specifically about sexting. If you don't know what sexting is, let me just brief flyover. This is sending and receiving pornographic images through your phone. So I'm going to take a picture of myself naked. I'm going to send it to my girlfriend, and vice versa. My girlfriend's going to send me pictures. This could be full body. This could be particular body parts. It's a variety of different things, but that's the gist of sexting. Sext over text messaging. 27% of teens are receiving sexts, and almost 15% are sending them. This is the Journal of the American Medical Association of Pediatrics. Now, these stats are what they're saying is this is the low end of the sex spectrum. So they're being even conservative with these numbers. 27% are receiving, 15 are sending. So this means on a Wednesday night, we have approximately 70 kids that show up. Overall, in our whole youth ministry, there's about 120 or so. But on an average Wednesday, there's 60 to 70 kids. Let's just say 70. Out of those 70, 19 of them are receiving sexts. 19 out of 70 are receiving images from people, and 10 of those 70 are sending them. So again, not trying to scare you, not trying to make you feel like the world is on fire. I'm just letting you know this wasn't an issue 12 years ago when I started in youth ministry. It's an issue now that we need to be aware of, and I'm just trying to open the can of worms so we have the conversation about it. It's a pressing concern for me as a youth pastor, and it should be for you as a parent, that we're navigating conversations around sexuality, around sexual behavior, and then digital health, and how our screens have an effect on our self-esteem and our self-worth and our confidence and our depression and our anxiety. It's all kind of interwoven together. And so these stats that 19 out of our group are receiving sex, and 10 are sending them, that's concerning to me. These are conversations that I'm open to having. There was a writer of the Hillsong movement, Hillsong worship leaders. One of the writers, Marty Sampson, recently renounced Christianity, said he's stepping away from the faith. He's been a worship leader for Hillsong for, I think, over a decade. But the biggest thing that he kept saying over and over and over in his renouncement of the faith, why he's departing Christianity after a decade or more of serving in the church, was there's a lot of hard issues going on and no one's talking about it. I'm not going to dive into the specifics of that article. That's not the point of this video. But I have purposed, since I've been at New Hope Church and since I've been in youth ministry, I've purposed to never let that be said of me, of my ministry, that we're not talking about the hard things. We talk about sexuality. We talk about anxiety, depression. We talk about the hard stuff. And whether or not that's a good reason to leave Christianity if people aren't talking about it, I've just decided, even long before this article came out, that we are going to dive headfirst into the tough issues. So that's kind of the gist of this video. We've always known, since phones have been out, that teens were using them to sext. Of course, our hormones are going crazy. We have these cameras. We have these screens. What do we really think is going to happen? I mean, come on. So our hypersexualized culture, our glorification of sex and the physical body, of course, we're going to use these to send images, right? So we've known it's been happening. It's not a big, they're doing what? This is more, they're doing it how often and how many of them are doing it? That's crazy. So again, not a huge shock, just a shock to the amount. Even the world, even the non-Christians in the world, even the secular medical field is going, whoa, that's a lot of teenagers sending junk pictures. You know what I mean? So it's something to look at, like I said, as youth pastors and parents. Now, here they researched results from about 110,000 young people in 39 different studies. These were conducted all over the world, the United States, the Netherlands, South Africa, the Czech Republic. So it's not specific to the U.S., although the U.S. was, I believe, the largest chunk. So the shocking thing here is how many are doing it, but it's not the most shocking thing. Here's something to be aware of, too. In this conversation about sexting, what are you doing on your phone? What are you sending? What are you receiving? As reported by Yahoo News, and I have this research here, so forgive me, I don't have it memorized. I'm just kind of referencing this. 12% of teens have forwarded a sext without consent. So they're sending the sexually explicit material without asking permission of those involved. And 8% have had one of their own sexts forwarded without their consent. So there's this myth that if I send you something in a conversation, it's going to stay in this conversation. Nope, sorry. We're all in this big warehouse called the internet together, and it can be shared with anybody, anywhere, anytime. So one of the concerning things is that, of course, something I send to a girlfriend, we break up, that girlfriend then has this image that she can send to whoever she wants. And 12% are forwarding those messages. That's a lot. That is way too many. So part of the conversation here, if I'll just park on this for a second, is there's a self-worth issue here. Is, do you have enough respect for yourself to kind of keep what's under these clothes private and keep it to yourself until you're married? And it's not about this. I think teenagers look at it like this legalistic, old school purity culture that was a failed experiment from the 90s, yada, yada, yada. But the reality is, it's a self-worth thing. Is I value this body, and the only person that's going to get to experience this is going to be my spouse. So as much as I would like to hammer home morality and preach about remaining a virgin, all of that, at the end of the day, it's not about all those behavioral things. It's about the heart. Do you value, God paid a price for you. Do you value what God purchased? Because he sent his son's life for your body, for you. Do you value it like that? And the problem here is we're seeing a lack of self-respect, a lack of value that I can just share with whoever, kind of virtually prostitute myself online. Now, researchers are saying we need to do more studies on this. We need to realize we realize there's a gap here, that there's more stuff we're not talking about. This is all kind of brand new. You're navigating this as parents. I'm navigating this as a youth pastor. The researchers are navigating this in a public health standpoint, trying to figure out what is this doing to our culture. And so nobody has this all figured out. So with 1 in 7 teens sending sex and 1 in 4 teens receiving sex, we've got to be proactive and not reactive about sexting and digital conversations online. This is not just, you did what? I'm going to take your phone away. The lady that was cutting my hair, the reason we were talking about this was because she had found her teenager doing something on her phone, talking to somebody in a way that was not appropriate, and took the phone away. That was reactive. I didn't tell her this, but I would say, are you creating an environment of trust and health and open conversation about this for her to even realize what's good parameters, what's wrong parameters of how to talk to people online? So for some of us, this is already an issue that you've dealt with. For some of us, you're still ahead of the curve here. It hasn't kind of hit your household yet, but I'm encouraging you, be proactive, not reactive. Be ahead of the game here. And I'm here to help. I want to help you in these conversations. I've had conversations with teenagers. I've had conversations with teenagers who have done the right thing and shut things down. And I've had conversations with teenagers who have ended up in jail because they have been in possession of child pornography on their phone of a 14-year-old. And they were 17 when it happened, but they turned 18, got arrested. So it's this whole mess that I've seen both sides of, and I'm here to help navigate. Again, not trying to instill fear or convince you that the whole world's going to hell in a handbasket. Just trying to get ahead of the game here. And like I said, in a lot of ways, I feel like we're already behind if you're not having these conversations. But wherever you at, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So if you feel behind, if you feel like you haven't covered this well, let's start now. It's not too late. There are some things that we can still kind of nip in the bud. Now, the other thing is, what's the app they're using, right? What is there just an app I can delete, make sure they don't have their phone? Not really. Of course, Snapchat Snapchat was created for college students to sext privately in a safe environment. So Snapchat, that's what it's been built around. Obviously, Snapchat, I don't see a lot of health in that app. I've talked about that before. But there's no, what did they say in Jurassic Park? Life finds a way. Sex finds a way. They're going to have ways to communicate. I was working with a parent years ago who they were finding sexts on their kid's phone. They were living this proactive lifestyle of having the conversations and trying to be ahead of the curve. And yet we're finding the stuff in every app, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat. So they deleted everything, put a blocker on. They gave him Waze. So he had the app, it's Waze, the navigation app Waze. And there's a chat feature in Waze. There was at the time, I don't know if there still is. And this kid was using the chat feature in Waze to communicate with a girl, like, and I don't know what the extent of that was, if that was actual sexting or if it was more of a verbal, like a just texting type of a thing inappropriately, or if there's actual images being sent back and forth. But my point is, there's 1,000 different ways we can communicate, 1,000 different apps, and yeah, you're gonna have to try to keep track of them all, but also know that they're really good at hiding stuff. And so you're just going to have to, more than just figuring out what app to use, figure out a way to have open, honest communication. And you can build it. It'll take time, but you can build it. So, like I said, I'm not going to camp out too much here, but the other issue with sexting is that it can turn into an issue of child pornography, which is obviously very wrong, but also very illegal. And so, like I said, I have known students who have been incarcerated for possession of child pornography because it was a relationship of sexting that one of the students then aged out and busted, So that's just another thing to be aware of, especially for guys that are dating younger girls. Hey, this is something that could really, really affect you once you're 18. So let's get a handle on it right now. Like I said, I don't want to camp out on that too much. I think you get that. Also, another thing, just to like I said, it's a self-respect issue. The researchers don't necessarily point this out, but there's more to a relationship than objectification and external beauty and sexual pleasure. And so if we are already accelerating the relationship to that point through text messages, we are creating a fraudulent version of human intimacy. We're no longer needing the actual real sex. We can kind of get a counterfeit version of it through my phone. So it kind of accelerates this process. So this is all very stressful, very overwhelming, very, like I said, you probably are already aware of this, but in case you're not, I'm kind of dropping a bomb on you. I'm not trying to do that. I just want you to be aware. I always want to over communicate with you. And the question arises, what can I do? What can I do? Like, what can we do? And I've said a few things along the way here, but ultimately, when I'm overwhelmed or when I'm stressed or when I'm faced with something like this that is just like, I need to deal with this, but I don't know how, I usually do one of two things. I either run from it, ignore it, and hope it goes away, hope it works itself out. Or, the older I get, the better I get at this, is I lean into God with that. And I go, God, I've got something that is challenging. I've got an issue. I've got a problem. I really need some help. And I use that pressure to allow me to press into God. And a lot of times I can use pressure to kind of create a wedge and go, God, I got to figure this out. Like, let me go deal with my stress before I talk to you, God, right? But I'm going to encourage you, if this is something you're dealing with in your household, use this to drive you closer to the Lord. I believe it was Charles Spurgeon that said, I've learned to kiss the wave that throws me against the rock of ages. We're going to find in navigating life that it's painful. It feels like punishment at times. But if we will use these things that throw us down to allow them to push us into God, there will be a huge, huge benefit there that can only be explained, this problem can only be resolved with an intimacy with God and a listening to the Holy Spirit and navigating it His way. There are some practicals. So obviously, show your daughters love and affection so they don't go to try to find it from some guy through their phone. And that's basic, and we get that. But show your daughters that they're valuable, that they matter, that their bodies are treasures to be prized and not something just to snap photos of and share, like a museum attraction. These are treasures that belong to one person. That's their future spouse. Your body is for one person. And so express that. Show the value. I've got a 4-year-old. I want her to know that. I'm a long way off from some of these conversations, but I'm already realizing this mentality can creep in that she feels less than. And so do your best to fight that. Take ownership of your child's online habits. Filter devices. I've done some other teachings on different devices you can have that will help you filter things in your home. There's another one called Bark, I believe. I haven't talked about this one, but Bark is a cell phone monitoring service. There's a ton of them out there. I'll try to find some more resources and put a slide up here that can display kind of what I'm talking about. I don't have a bunch of them here at the moment, but there are tons out there that you can use to monitor what's going on. And it's an ownership issue. I want to know who's in the warehouse, who they're talking to before I send them to the party. And if that means taking the phone away for an extended period of time, so be it, right? That's a right, or it's a privilege. It's not a right. So take ownership of it, express value, deal with the value issue, deal with the self-worth issue, and take matters into your own hands. Don't be afraid to parent your kids in the area of online. We do that when it comes to eating habits, when it comes to exercise, when it comes to their education. We like to control things and keep the ball rolling a certain direction when it comes to our kids. Are you doing that in the online space? Or is this just a thing that you're allowing culture to dictate? Take ownership of your child's online habits. Again, I don't say this to instill fear in your hearts, but I do say this just to say, here's what's going on in the world. Likely that it's happening in some of our houses that we're just not aware of. Be aware, take ownership. Again, I love your teenagers. I love doing this with you. I love this partnership that we have, that I get the honor of spiritually investing into your kids. And it's easier when it's done together, when what's happening at home is syncing up with what we're doing as a church. So I hope this has been helpful to you. I hope this isn't like oh crap, where do I go from here? But I hope this is more, wow, this is serious. I've got to get proactive and deal with it. So reach out. Let me know if there's anything I can do. I'm going to continue to put things like this in your hands and help you navigate these conversations the best that I can. I hope this has been a blessing. Let's talk. Let me know what I can do to help you navigate this crazy world of sexting and technology. God bless.